Welcome back to another episode of Chit Chat. Yes, we're back before the end of 2023. We might even have another one before the end of 2023. Don't hold your breath, but it might happen. I'm here. Ryan's here. Jeremy's not here.
Yep.
Emily's not here.
Yep.
You know where I'm going. Nelson is.
Yes.
Nelson, this is your first Chit Chat, right?
It is. It's my first.
We think that's the case. We talked about it beforehand.
Right. Who
If
knows?
he's been
They all
on
blur
Chit Chat
together.
before, all three of us have erased it from our memory.
Yeah.
It might have been a
so
really bad one.
It must have been.
It's-
Let's act like it never happened. It was episode 28 and a half, I think is what it was. But we are going to be talking about PAX Unplugged today, mainly because these two went.
Yeah.
I did not. Jeremy went. Emily didn't. So some of the team went, some of the team didn't. But we wanted to talk about it in a general sense, too, as it relates to, has it become the best convention? Because we've talked about conventions over the years, and we all have our opinions. But I think some of us might think it's the best convention now.
I do think it's the best convention. I think it's the best convention from like on a personal level, on a professional level. I think for the industry as a whole, I really
Keep
do
going.
think
How many ways is
I
it
really,
the best
I
convention?
really
Don't
do
forget
think
culinary.
for a
Yeah.
lot of that it is.
Best one that starts with a P?
It just is a
Ends in
great
an X.
convention. And like I say that, yes, but like on a personal level, I'll say as just an attendee, because I kind of get to do a little bit of both. Like I work at these cons, like I do work for Man vs. Meeple. My day job is Japanime Games, for those who don't know. So I do a little bit of that, but I do still get to spend time attending the con. And what this convention offers to attendees, I think is unparalleled to other cons. As far as getting access for the kind of games that I play, and getting access to these games. Like Gen Con is over, Essen is over. So all of those big new releases, anything that was huge at Gen Con, pretty much anything that was huge at Essen is there available to play. And that's been something that PAXU has kind of always offered. And I remember when we used to go, they used to have that little first look section that was roped off, and they had like 10 tables of
That was
Essen
about
games.
it. I mean, maybe more than 10 tables, but they didn't. It was mostly relegated
Yeah.
to that section. They didn't have a lot for sale,
Yeah.
but that has changed, right?
Now
Yeah.
that first look area is like a whole hall. Like
And-
it is huge.
And they have a lot more, vendor space and everything.
Yeah.
So I think kind of contrary to that, I also agree that I think PAX Unplugged is my favorite board game convention for me as a personal level.
There's
So
2 votes already.
two votes already.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Sign off. However, if you are going to look for the new hotness, the new things, Gen Con Essen is
Sure.
the better convention for that.
I mean,
PAX
Essen for sure.
Essen for sure, absolutely. But like Ryan was saying, all of those games are now at PAX, and so we can play them. So it's kind of what are you looking for in a convention?
Yeah.
And what I really enjoy about PAX is their open game play area. They have a game library that I think is unparalleled.
Yeah.
Gen Con you have to pay for, and so I kind of leave that out of the conversation a little bit
Uh-huh.
because all of this is free. But you can go and find pretty much any game that you want in that library, check it out, play, open forever, and just like it's a very gaming focused
Very
convention.
gaming focused. Right.
Yeah.
There are sales there, and there were definitely a lot of games for sale.
Yeah.
We had Apiary showing up, with White Castle showing up, then some new releases like Mycelia was out from Ravensburger, and then, of course, they had a fully stocked Lorcana booth that
Oh,
sold
yeah.
out over the course of the weekend.
course.
So there was definitely still people buying there, and I think if that's your focus, if this is a shopping trip for you, Gen Con and Essen both will always be the better shopping trip.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it kind of overall from a whole, because Gen Con is that shopping trip, but Gen Con is like Disney World. You're waiting in lines everywhere.
Yeah.
You're racing to try to get the things. There's a lot of pressure at Gen Con. There's a lot of stress.
Gen Con's intense.
Gen Con is very intense, and PAXU is not.
Yeah.
You get a lot of the best parts of Gen Con without that overload, that overcrowding. Now that we've talked about it, of course, everyone's going to go next year.
Yeah.
Of course.
Which, to be fair, it has grown significantly.
Yeah.
Now, I've only
It
been the
has.
last 3 years, and I have not been pre-pandemic. However, kind of over the last 3 years, I've seen it just grow significantly to I think this year was over 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it felt crowded. It felt full.
Yeah, I don't know what
It
the
felt
numbers
full,
were in
for
the
sure.
past. I went to the first few actually, pre-pandemic. And I remember the first one feeling pretty small.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
felt like a slightly miniature version of Origins at the time. And I think a lot of people in the early days related it to Origins because it had a lot of that, like
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
guys have already talked about, hanging out, playing games. I think the big difference from my perspective, and our perspective is somewhat unique in what we do compared to anyone else who might just be going to a convention to do whatever they want to do. Like, for instance, if you're wanting to take place in a lot of events that are organized, Gen Con's definitely
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
your con too. It has like 2,000, what was it, 20,000, some crazy amount of events.
Yeah, there was a huge amount of events being run at Gen Con. There's not that many events.
They probably
running at
still
PAX.
have some, but not
They
a
do.
ton.
Well, and also on that same note too, since Gen Con is like one of the world premier cons, you're going to get a lot of like world tournaments held there. Like if you want to be
Yeah.
like in the top tier Magic the Gathering or
Yeah.
Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, BattleTech, whatever, all those tournaments, Gen Con is the place to do that. And you know, like, sure, but I think even those people that go to Gen Con, you walk away and you're like, man, that was a lot. Like,
It is.
I just feel wiped. I feel knocked out. PAX is way more chill. PAX is like an Origins, but
Well-
at this point, it's surpassed Origins, I think.
and partly the chill vibe comes from the fact that it is at the end of the year. So
Yeah.
for us in particular, and I think from the publisher's perspective, at Gen Con, at Origins, all those, especially Essen, publishers are on it to like, we need to announce games,
Yeah.
we need to do this, we need to... End of the year, it's been more of a, okay, we can take a minute to breathe. Like when we're meeting with people at Gen Con, we're going through a lot of information. Like they're showing us new games and stuff.
And it's like boom, boom, boom.
At
And then we got to
PAX-
run to the next one.
Yeah, at PAX, it generally is like, hey, how's it going? And maybe you get a game in or something
Well,
like that
yeah, we-
after
What a
hours.
wild idea.
We did that.
Um,
We had a chill meeting with Ravensburger where we just kind of chilled and talked about the industry and about like stuff that we probably took 30 to 40 minutes with them, which you'd never be able to do that at Gen Con, honestly.
No, but one difference I have noticed, even though I didn't go, based on what I've heard and what these guys have said, is now I think we are seeing more new things being shown too, like maybe even preview style for the following year. So
That's
there's
true.
going to be companies that I think start using PAX more and more as, hey, you know what? We are running a Kickstarter in April. Let's get our act together. And that's the big difference. A lot of people in the past, like, if they're running a Kickstarter in April, they ain't ready to show anything now. But I think more people are planning in advance. And we actually you guys saw some games that are running campaigns first, maybe even second
Yeah.
quarter of the year.
Yeah, we got to first look at Luthier, River Valley
Glassworks.
Glassworks. I saw Galactic Cruise again, which I had seen at Gen Con, but now I've gotten to see like what the final stuff looks like, and it looks absolutely incredible. So yeah, but again, it is just like a chill place to get to do that, to actually like get to go hands on with a lot of games, to get to demo a lot of games, and there is still shopping. But yeah, that whole and that huge open play area. Plus, I don't want to leave this out. One of the personal reasons.
Reading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reading Terminal
I said
Market.
I knew it. I
wasn't
knew it.
100% a joke.
No, not even a joke. The food around the convention center at PAXU is so good. I know that seems
It's
like
the
a
best.
thing. It's the best of any convention I've gone to. Like people talk
And I
about
would argue the most accessible.
and the most accessible. Reading
Oh, yeah.
Terminal Market is literally across the street. You're 1 block away from Chinatown, so you get like crazy good food there. And then of course, like you've got all there's even food like in the con. Like it just food is accessible. It's easy to get to, and it's all delicious. And like I am motivated by food. I'm a food motivated person.
I'm a food motivated.
But
I
honestly,
need
when
that
you-
as a t-shirt.
like I
Can
have
get a t-shirt.
100% that's a t-shirt.
there are some cons where it's hard. Like Gen Con it brings in the food trucks, which are great, but those like it's just you're waiting in
Yeah,
line
Gen Con
forever.
did do a better job of that this
They
year.
did a
but
better job,
yeah.
but still, it's not as easy as like popping over to Ready Terminal Market and getting a nice Herschel's pastrami sandwich.
Oh yeah, I wish
which
that,
is all I
I had a
need.
dream about that last night. It was oh my goodness. I had my first Herschel sandwich and my second.
Yeah, they went.
This-
They went
this
more
year.
than once. In fact, the first day PAX was going
Oh.
on, someone in our Discord posted a picture. I think mostly for me to see Herschel's being eaten.
Yeah.
And
No,
I was missing it for sure.
And
Yeah,
I'm-
it's nice about Philadelphia
it's a
is
nice thing.
it is more of a melting pot in general of a city
Yeah.
than say Columbus or Indianapolis. So you are going to have a lot more of that built in, just even in the surrounding areas. Forget just Reading Terminal, but Reading Terminal alone, if you compare that to North Market, they're very similar, but North Market seems like the baby brother,
Yeah.
distant
Oh yeah.
cousin
Uh-huh.
to Reading Terminal.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, and we had soup dumplings. I went with my Japanime team to this ramen shop that was inspired by Blade Runner. Kind of had a Blade Runner vibe, which was really cool. So like, there's a ton of cool, unique places. And yeah, like that's not really part of the con, but like when you're looking at which cons you want to attend, I do this. I go to Dice Tower East because it's right there at Disney World,
Yeah.
right? I go to PAXU because it's right there next to Reading Terminal. Like that does factor into my personal decision as a fan of conventions as to which ones I go to. I don't really want to go to a con where, like, I love BGG, but like you have to go forever to even get to the next closest food place. So like, again, food motivated.
I have a tough question for both of you. I'm going to start
boy.
with Nelson.
Uh-oh.
Are you guys ready?
Maybe.
This
so.
is a warm-up for our player versus player, but nothing like that. What would you say is a downside of PAXU?
Ooh.
I put him on the spot. Like, what would be your criticism of
I've got.
PAXU?
I have an absolute criticism.
The first thing that comes to my head is that you're in Philadelphia in December. I think
that's reasonably fair.
yeah, we were fairly fortunate this year with the weather. Now it rained a couple of days here and there, but I mean we were in the 50s. I've been there and it's been nippy and chilly and cold. And if you're not staying in a hotel that's very close or connected to, it can be the travel can be a little.
My
tough.
first year, I was probably what felt like a mile walk or more from the convention center. And in 2018, if my memory serves me correctly, it was cold.
That was that year.
I was
freezing.
bundled up. I had a sweatshirt. I had a jacket. I
Yep.
had a hat on. It was freezing cold. And yeah, that's a decent point. And that's really just a time of the year sort of thing, I suppose. But yeah, the last few years, we've been fortunate.
It's been nice, yeah.
And
Thanks, global warming.
I would say nothing is without criticism. I mean, and it's hard to get one of those. There's only a few hotels that are right there. I mean, my biggest criticism to PAX, and I will say this directly to PAX, the way they handled getting into the convention was not great.
This year?
This year, they cut everything down to one entrance. And so they had everybody line up for this one entrance. Exhibitors, press, one-day attendees, everybody was in the same line to get into the building. And if you've never...
Which went outside of the building, which again, Philadelphia and December.
And this line wrapped all the way, like it went blocks. This line was blocks down. And the issue is if you've ever been inside the convention center, the convention is actually up on the top floor, like on the second floor. So to get from the entrance to the second floor, there's an escalator. And they would only let a few people up the escalator at a time. And so there was this huge bottleneck. And it didn't matter. So like we were waiting in line for like 30-something minutes just to even get into the doors to then like be able. So
did they have metal detectors and everything again?
They did. They had metal detectors, which is I'm glad for all that. They had metal detectors, bag checks. They did open up some other doors after 10 a.m. after the con opens. But if you wanted to be there, if you wanted to get in early, like if you're an exhibitor who had to get in early, or you're a fan who wanted to be there like right when the doors open at 10, you had to wait in this huge. Like it was huge.
Hundreds and hundreds of people.
That has been an issue in the past
big
too.
Issue.
I remember, I don't know what year it was we were there, and on Sunday, the line was so long. And at Sunday, you'd been there for a couple days already, right? So you're going in there to check off a few boxes, to say your goodbyes, to maybe pick up that one game. But when you go out there and it's like maybe even a longer line than a half hour. The year I'm thinking of, it was the first year they implemented the metal detectors. So they didn't have that down pat.
Yeah.
So it was really slow, and that line did go.
I mean, this line, I think it was even longer this year because it was busier. And they used to have an exhibitor entrance.
Mm-hmm.
They used to. They don't anymore. Like this year, there was no exhibitor entrance. So you were like, exhibitors were like, oh my gosh, I got to be in there by 10. It was to a point where like the rest of the days we were just like, let's just get there at 10:30 and not have to wait in the giant line just to get in at 10. So that did not impact our experience with the con, but I could see some people definitely walking away a little frustrated by that.
Sure.
But I think enough people gave feedback. I would be surprised if they didn't look into ways to remedy that for next year.
Well, if you want to see some real frustration, more so than what he's talking about, just wait for our next segment because we're going to play a little player versus player inspired by PAX. And I'm going to give these guys a second to think, because they're going to have to think of games that start with the letter P.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
And we are back. I didn't want to give these guys any more time. For the last 2 minutes, they've been sitting here. Games that start with P? I don't want to give them any thought. I'm going to put one of them on tilt here, and I'm going to randomly pick one of them to start. So if you've watched before, you know how this works. We're going to go back and forth like a tennis match until someone can't name a game that starts with the letter P. And if you've watched, you'll know it might happen in the very first round.
I mean, I'm going to look behind me to make sure, because every single time there is always one
with
right
that
behind us.
This is putting someone on the spot, but at the same time, it gives them the advantage. And since Nelson is the newcomer to the set here for Chit Chat, Nelson, you may begin.
I
A
have
game that starts with the letter P.
Good, because I have at least one pandemic.
Pandemic. Now, with that said, I want to introduce
Oh, a new rule?
not a new rule. I just want, before we get crazy and I hear Pandemic
Legacy. Pandemic
Legacy Season 2. Blah, blah, blah. Pandemic is done. So things
What
with
about
a big...
Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu?
No pandemics anymore. So that's effectively how it's going to work. And I am going to be the sole judge.
Oh, the soul judge.
I have all the power.
Oof.
So Ryan, you've stalled long enough.
I did. Paint the roses.
Paint the roses. Do you see that over there somewhere?
Do you have it over here somewhere?
I have it somewhere behind. There's a mountain of games over there.
Yeah, I need to get my eyes
Paint
checked.
the roses. That works. So just to be clear, no more Paint the Roses games. There's only one.
As far as we know.
I'm going to go with Parks.
Parks.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm just wondering to myself how soon it's going to happen.
PAX Premiere.
Okay, PAX Premiere. That's a double P. No bonus points or anything like
no
that. But the alliteration I do respect.
Plague Inc.
Oh.
One of the first games I ever
Yeah.
kickstarted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Pass the pigs.
Is that a game?
Yeah, it is. You got the little pigs. Yes, it is.
I will say.
Yes, it is.
I don't personally know all the P games, so if after
David's
the
like, I don't
fact,
know. Is this one?
if everyone in the comments is going, that's not a game, I'll make everyone re-record this whole entire episode and we'll repost it. It will be episode 130 version 2.
130
Past the
version
pigs,
two.
we'll let it go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, yes.
I'm a little bitter about the alliteration in it now.
I went. That's 2 in a row I did with.
Yeah, settle down.
alliteration.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
Is that it already?
I think so. You don't have to
Another-
come at me like that.
I still got more P's.
Okay, what are your?
I'm not going to give you my next P.
you don't have another P game?
I don't think I have another P game.
We saw a P game at
Do you have
PAX.
another P game?
We saw a P
Me?
game.
Yeah.
We saw a
I
P
don't
game
think
at
so.
PAX. We saw one together at PAX.
Panic at Gotham City.
That's the one I was going to say. I can't believe that you didn't get that.
That's a great
You know
one.
what?
That's a great one. I think
We'll
of
let
G.
Past the Pigs go since he was
What?
kind
That
and
is-
helped Nelson. Okay.
Park Avenue.
Is that a game? It really
I think
feels
it's
like Ryan's just
Bark
making
Avenue.
stuff. New.
Bark Avenue is also a game. That's a great game.
That
It
starts with
is.
B.
That does start. Bark Avenue does start with a B.
Okay, Park Avenue, we'll accept it. I
Okay.
think we're done over here, though.
Yeah, I'm
Unless you're going to say Panicky at Gotham City.
panicky.
I got more.
Go for it. I want to see
Paper Tales.
Paper Tales.
Okay,
that's a-
so
Yeah, that's a good one.
Spoiler alert.
Paperback.
Nelson's lost, but
Paperback.
I want to see how
Another
far I can
game.
go. Paperback.
Princess in Perils. I think that might be technically a role-playing game. I don't know if you're going to count that.
Sure, fine.
Wasn't there also one Princess and Ogre? Wasn't there, or was it Ogres? We just got one. Now I'm done.
You're done.
I'm
Trolls
done.
and princesses.
Trolls and Princesses.
Starts with a T.
I couldn't
though.
remember which way that was. And then I thought there was like a lot of other games that started with the word paper. I feel like there was like paper craft, but then I was like, I don't know. I think Park Avenue was a real game. It's also a place of Monopoly.
All right. I didn't
Park
plan
Place.
on doing this.
Park Place.
We're going to have a bonus round.
Oh,
See
no.
if Nelson can redeem
What's
himself.
the bonus
no.
round?
And they don't even know what letter I'm going
I
to
don't
say.
even know anything about
That
this.
was the P in PAX,
P is hard. Uh-oh. Don't do the X.
and now it's the U in Unplugged.
Oh.
Starting with Ryan since he won.
Let's do one that I just saw, Undergrove.
Undaunted.
Ooh.
Boop, boop, boop.
Unfathomable.
That is.
Under Falling Skies.
Ooh.
Oh, you're Johnny on the spot with
yeah,
the
you
U's.
got the U's.
There's probably way more P games.
Underground Railroad.
Underground Railroad. I don't know. When you said you, I was like, I got 2.
I've got 2.
Oh.
I got 2 U's.
Okay.
The
hold
thing
on.
is about, well, some of the names can spark memories of like, oh.
Now,
I
yeah,
could
well, I
do
just
that
thought of
with
another one,
stars.
too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what one you're thinking of.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, if he fizzles out here, I'm gonna guess what you're thinking, and if I guess, I'm the winner today. I'm making game.
Wow,
I'm
we're
making
just
this
making-
game up as we go.
David's like the rules master. He's
I
like,
never
I'm
get
just
to
making up
win.
rules.
I never get to play.
You've played
That's
before.
true.
I've run games
That is
before.
true. That is true. You got another U?
I don't think so.
All right. So he fizzled out again. Sorry, this is your last
what
episode
were you
of Chit
gonna
Chat.
What were you gonna say that mine was?
Underwater cities.
That was one of them that was on my list, but that wasn't gonna be my next.
Oh, that wasn't?
That wasn't gonna be my
What was
next
your
one.
next?
But I like Until Dawn. But Underwater Cities would have been a good one too.
Until Dawn?
Yeah, that's
There's a
that
board
little
game of that?
yeah, we did. I think we even covered it on the channel,
yeah.
David.
Sorry, Until Dawn publisher. We play a lot of games.
We
on
do.
here.
We play a ton of games.
Anyway, that was tonight's player versus player, or Ryan versus
it's
Nelson.
so you picked weird letters.
I know, that was the beauty of it. You be thankful I didn't pick X.
I don't think I could do a single
Xia?
one.
Legends of the
Xia,
Star System?
Xia Legend. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Is
only
there
one.
another one?
Xylophone?
Are
Fact
you
check me.
are you
No.
guys sure there's not an X-Men game?
Oh,
That starts with the word
X-Men
X-Men?
Interaction?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's an X-Men game that starts
Oh,
with X.
yeah. Okay.
XCOM.
Yeah.
There's some
Oh, you
X
could have
games.
done it.
Yeah.
I just came up with more X games and he came up with P games. Anyway,
You're very so proud of it.
that was tonight's player versus player. If you're still watching, we're going to be back in a second to talk about some of the games we've been playing.
But before that, let's talk about Phantom Sleeves. If you play board games with cards and you want them protected, you should check out Phantom Sleeves. They're top-notch quality, easy to play with, and they care about your cards and the environment. Plus, Phantom Sleeves are made with board gamers in mind. The sheer variety of sizes and shapes is kind of crazy. So no matter what game you're playing, they most likely have the perfect sleeve. And whether you want to see your cards crystal clear or avoid that annoying glare from the lights above your table, they've got you covered with both glossy and matte options. And if you're like, I just don't sleeve my cards, well, maybe you should stop and think for a second. Who's going to protect the dusky leaf monkey? Phantom Sleeves. That's who.
And we are back to talk about the games we've been playing. But first, I want to tell you, we were just talking off camera about the games they missed. And it was like, all three of us were sitting here going, oh, Planet Nubo, Planet Unknown, like all these P games.
You turn the cameras off and it's a totally different thing. As soon as the camera's off me, I'm like, oh yeah, here's 10 P games or even U games. It's
just a matter of the camera was still on, by the way.
Well, you know what I mean. We weren't filming.
You didn't feel the pressure.
There's no pressure, right?
You didn't Cindy Brady it.
That pressure comes on and you just are locked in. So.
All right. So let's talk. Hopefully, we can remember the games we've been playing. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
First of all, got to play a ton of games at PAXU. I think this is another thing that we didn't really touch. We touched on a little bit. You get to play way more games at PAXU than any other PAX. And I want to talk about two. I'm going to talk about one really quick, just because I finally got to really dig into Nekojima, which is a game that we've played and I've enjoyed, but I know you love.
I love, and we just recently got the final version.
Yeah, and we played for hours hours of Nekojima, which was great. But the one I really want to talk about was Luthier, which is from Pavison Games, who did Distilled. This is a game about making instruments, and it's super interesting. First of all, it's a cool theme. It's a worker placement game. It's one of those games where there's all these different sections of the board. You're doing all these different things to make instruments or play instruments and hire composers and things like that. So it's a very cool theme that I really enjoy. And the game is Vincent Dutrait artwork. Imagine that for a classical period.
That's
doing
cool.
the orchestra. Yeah, I mean, it looks really, really good. But it's a really cool gameplay mechanic. And it's kind of a worker placement game, but you have 3 workers. There's a level 1 worker, a level 3 worker, and a level 5 worker. And then you can kind of buff them with these little assistant tokens. And you're stacking these to take different actions. And the level at which you take the action kind of determines how well you get to do it. So if you put a 5 there, you get to do something better than maybe somebody that put a 1 there. But what's super interesting about this game that really makes it very strategic is that you have to do things in a very specific order. You need to make an instrument, you need to get the instrument. You need the plans for it. You need to finish it. There's a multi-step process to finishing it. And you want to have a composer out, because if you do things with the right composer, he gives you benefits for doing certain things. So there's all these interlocking systems. And when you're placing your things out, you're going, okay, I'm going to do this action, then I'm going to do this action, then I'm going to do this action. But other players can take the same action and they stack their chips on top of yours. And then when it's your turn, so it's Nelson's turn, if he's first, he activates all of the locations that he's gone to. And then everybody does the action at the same time.
Oh.
So if I needed to go here, 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 and Nelson activates this one first, I'm doing this action before I got to do the other 2. And that can really...
Does he just choose one and then
he does
else?
he does one of his actions. It goes around in in a circle. Each player takes a turn activating a location they're in, and then everybody goes. And not only that, it goes based on the strength of the chit you put down. So if I went there with a 3, Nelson went there with a 5, or even the other way, if I went there with a 5 and Nelson went there with a 3, even though Nelson's choosing the action, mine's a 5, I get to do it first. So I get first pick of what's there, and maybe I just took the thing that Nelson really wanted. So
That sounds like thinky worker placement.
It's
And
very
you're doing
unique.
this blind as well, correct?
Right, they're all
Like,
face down.
yeah,
I
they're
should
all
say
face
that.
down.
So you don't know.
Yeah.
So he knows that, like, I might put mine there. I might put a 1 there going, I really hope nobody else comes here because I want this card. And if anybody else comes here, they're probably going to take it and I'm not going to get anything. Luckily, like, all the actions have, like, there's like an action and then like a consolation. So like if you ever like are in a situation where you can't do the main action, there's always a secondary action you can do. And then if you went there with a high enough worker, you get to do a little bonus as well. There are like some spots on your player board that nobody can mess with that are yours. So you you get to kind of choose when those trigger. But anything that's out in the main board, like I might be forced to do a performance before I've made the instruments on my player board.
Interesting.
And so you really have to try to think about like, what happens if this one gets triggered earlier? Is that really going to mess me up? Or am I kind of able to go with the flow? It's very unique. And cool. And like, again, like it's just a cool looking game.
Yeah.
And just that idea of like, I love that like Amadeus feel of like competing for the prestige of the patronage of all these different famous composers.
So does it out Lacrimosa?
I mean, if I'm being fair to it, I like this. This was way heavier than Lacrimosa, which to me is. Oh, yeah. I mean, Lacrimosa does not have this layered worker placement.
It's very medium weight.
Yeah, this is
Would you say this is medium?
I would say this is on the higher side of medium.
375 weight.
But it's not like super weighty. It's not the heaviest game.
Sure.
But it is heavier than Lacrimosa. And I do like it better than Lacrimosa.
Very different games.
To be very different games, but this hit me in a way that I walked away and I was like, this is going to be another big hit for them, for sure.
All right. Well, even though I didn't go to PAXU, I did get a copy here of Mycelia, which they also played a little bit of, right?
I got to play a couple rounds of it, yeah.
They played a demo of it. I think I've played it once or twice now with Emily and Alicia. This is and we have content up on the channel as well by the time you're watching this. We did a Just Played, so if you want a deeper dive than what I'm about to give. This is a very introductory level deck building game. And I say this for a couple reasons that I expand upon in the video. A lot of people would assume an intro to deck building would just be deck building. I'm a big believer that when you pair deck building with doing something else, it is easier for the new gamer to grasp the fact that what they're doing with the deck building, because really they're more focused on the thing they're doing than the deck building itself, because deck building can be kind of an abstract concept to a lot of new gamers. We're just playing cards over and over. And this one, what you're doing is everyone starts with this board with all these dewdrops all over it, and you're trying to move the dewdrops mostly to this sort of portal that takes it to a shrine that's this really cool
tree stump almost?
It is a tree stump, but the component is really, really nice for an entry-level game like this, and it's very fun to put your dewdrops up there, and then it rotates and they all pour out and stuff like that. But it's a very mechanically abstract in that you're playing the cards, and the cards are going to let you move dewdrops, or like you are getting new cards that let you do more unique things to the dewdrops. It even has some advanced cards that you can mix into the deck that do even more interesting things. And I was telling Nelson about this earlier. My big takeaway, very fun, little, light, introductory game. But my biggest takeaway was, as an enthusiast gamer, we enjoyed it. I don't know that we'd get it to the table over and over and over just with enthusiast gamers, but there felt like there was so much new design space in this game where you could take this, baby of an idea and do so much more with it. I don't know that this is the type of game that's going to get expansions or anything like that. I
bet it will.
You think it will?
I think it could.
It could. I don't know if Ravensburger does a lot of that sort of stuff with their games.
Has a ton of expansions.
Well, that's a different sort of thing.
I mean, it was the part that I liked, you didn't even talk about, was the puzzle of like a lot of the cards refer back to your little mat, and they're like, you can move one, but only if you have two. So you want to play a card that moves one, so that now there's two. And now you can play the card that says if there's two, you can move one.
It's very puzzly.
Some of that chaining element, that was what really got to me as a gamer.
The order in which you play the cards is interesting as it relates to that puzzle, and I don't think you guys played with the advanced cards.
No, we didn't.
So when you buy the advanced cards, some of them even have a power that happens when you acquire the
nice.
card.
like
And
that.
some of those do some really wild things. Alicia had one that actually added another portal to her board.
Oh,
So she had 2
Oh, that's
portals.
cool.
that is
she
really
could work
that's
with.
cool.
I had one where I just wanted to get the dewdrops around orthogonally one of the red spaces, and when I played this card, it would zap dewdrops in all of the 4 spaces
nice.
around it. So instead of using the portal, I would just go to that red space because they immediately came off, which is another thing I think some of the advanced cards. It was a really fun game. I'd highly recommend it, even if you're an enthusiast gamer. But if you're wanting to get like newer gamers to the table, it's worth a shot.
You got to play the advanced mode. Nelson and I got to play while sitting on mushrooms.
That's
So
true.
Who really won?
We won.
How
the
do you know I
thematic
didn't?
Their booth was awesome. Like
Yeah,
the table looked like a tree stump, and they had little mushrooms, and they had fake grass laid down.
Oh, that's cool.
So like it really did feel very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Fantastic.
What did you play or have been playing?
I have been thinking about, because we got to play at PAX, River Valley Glassworks, which is a game coming out from All Play early next year that is a puzzly kind of drafting game where you're trying to get these glass gems onto your player board, and there are 8 different types of gems, but you can only store 7 of them. So if you ever take excess, you're going to get negative victory points. And it's simple, it's light, it's another kind of easy to get into type game, but I feel like there's a lot of kind of could be cutthroat decisions if you want to go through that, or a lot of like really interesting decisions on where and how you want to be drafting, because you're going to score your top 2 colors, your top 2 columns, as well as you'll score your rows. So you can go diverse or you can go kind of specialized. And the way that you're drafting, these chits are going to come out onto different river valleys, and I love this part. You take the river and it flows, so you'll pick up, and based on where they are in the river determines which shape you have to use to draft those types of glass. And components are absolutely gorgeous.
This was actually kind of nice because they were able to actually come home with a copy of it that Ryan quickly taught me yesterday.
It's such a quick teach.
We've all had a chance to play it. Would you agree? Because Ryan described it this way, and I kind of agree. Kind of a light Azul vibes for sure.
Very much so.
Yeah, it feels like intro level Azul because even though Azul's pretty gateway, the scoring can be a little obtuse for some new gamers. This one's very straightforward.
Yeah,
it's
and
just your columns and your rows.
Well, it definitely has those points of tension of Azul. Like there's no market in the middle, but as you're paying for these like areas, as you're taking stones, you're putting your own stones onto the board, and so you're making some piles really juicy, but also like you can only hold so many. So you could be making a pile so juicy that if somebody ever takes it, they can't fit it all like in Azul, and they're ending up with a ton of negative points.
Yep.
So there is like some people can play Azul very cutthroat, where they're looking at other players' boards more than their own, just to make sure that you don't get the stuff you need. You can do that with this game as well, and I think there's multiple layers of that kind of strategy of like, I just want to kind of work on my own board, or like there's a rarity, and like the orange glass is like the rarest, and if I see Nelson trying to collect the orange, maybe I'm tempted to take some orange just so he can never finish his columns. So it's got a little bit of that.
I want to play it with more than 2 players too.
Yeah.
It plays up to 4.
Yep.
Probably. Yeah.
4 or 5.
I think it's 5.
I think it
4
might
or
be 5.
And this one is a design from the design duo.
Yeah,
Riddle
Pinchback and Riddle, Motor City guys. Which is,
the Motor City
and one
guys.
other designer,
Shout out to you guys if you're watching. I know you are.
One other designer with them is whose name I forgot. I'm sorry, but like I know those guys so well, so that jumps to the top
We'll
of my
put
mind.
it down in the text below if there's another designer. We apologize for not knowing your name.
Yeah, but that's very different game from them. Going from something like Three Sisters to River Valley Glassworks.
They've been doing so many roll and writes for the past
Mm-hmm.
little minute. But yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that. And All Play seems pretty keen on
their
their
we got
expectations
to meet with them. They've got a lot planned for their Kickstarter. They got like a really deluxe version planned that sounds like it's going to be really cool.
It's going to be very pretty.
Yeah.
with real animals.
Yes.
Yeah, real animals.
You heard it here. Nelson said it.
They're talking about real glass, also real river. A real river comes in too.
The views and opinions of Ryan and Nelson do not represent those of Man vs.
No,
Meeple.
We have like the very basic version, but the way he described what the deluxe version is going to look like, I think a lot of people are going to want to get that.
Well, cool. Anyway, that's the games we've been playing. That is this episode of Chit Chat 130.
Yeah.
Nice round number. If you have any questions about everything we've talked about, make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.